First things first, I'm Jenna Wolfe alongside Nick Wright, Kevin Wells. Tom Verducci is with us
We
on a
made it,
Thursday
America!
morning.
Sports are
we did
back
it.
today! We made it!
It's so
I can't
exciting.
believe it, Jenna! We made it!
You know why Verducci's
Oh, my
here.
God.
We're going to get to him in a second. It is a good day for us. We do have a lot to talk about finally. Coming up, Clippers made their bubble debut last night. One star stood out. We'll let you know who. What do you want to see from LeBron in the Lakers debut in the bubble tonight? And Saints Pro Bowl quarterback Janoris Jenkins will join us, talk some Brady, talk some Breeze. We got a lot to talk to him about. But we have to start this morning, as Nick mentioned, with the return of baseball. And the big headline, the Dodgers signing Mookie Betts to a 12-year, $365 million extension. The mega deal tops Mike Trout money and includes a record $65 million signing bonus. So, Tom, let's start there. Mookie hasn't played a game yet for the Dodgers. You surprised they gave him such a large contract before he's even taken the field?
I'm not really surprised. This is equivalent if you go to buy a new car and you take a test drive and you love it so much you're sold before you even leave the dealer's lot. That's what happened with the Dodgers and Betts. Once this guy got in their camp, I'm talking about spring training in March and certainly recently in summer camp, they just loved everything about Mookie Betts. Yeah, they knew he was a good player, but seeing him up close every day, they were so impressed. This guy's bat-to-ball skills are freakishly good. Other than that, he's just a good teammate. He's working with the young hitters there. He's a great defender. They feel like he can play multiple positions anytime down the road. So this made a lot of sense for a team that tried to step up, remember, and sign Garrett Cole. I know the Dodgers until this point had not given out a $100 million deal, which is kind of crazy when you think about their market. But they did try to get Cole. Cole had his heart set on the Yankees. This was plan B, Betts, to go get Mookie in the trade. And I think all along they wanted to extend him. But again, once they had him in their camp and saw the kind of person and player he is, done deal.
Tom, shortly after the dust settled on the Betts trade, there were these, I don't even want to call them rumors, murmurs I'll call them. That, yeah, listen, the Red Sox traded him, but he's going to come back. He's going to play 1 year for the Dodgers, and he's going to come back, sign with Boston.
That's a valid thought.
Now that we officially know he, of course, is not going to do that, he's staying with the Dodgers. How would you put a final cap on the Red Sox trade and their decision? I know they got off the price money, but to move on from a homegrown guy who, at worst, is a top 3 player in the sport.
Yeah, I mean, listen, in the face of it, I mean, you think Mookie Betts in Boston, drafted in the 5th round, by the way, that should have been a career-long player in Boston, right? Retire the number, the whole 9 yards. But I think once they tried to extend him about a year and a half ago, they just didn't get a good vibe that it was going to happen. And more importantly than that, in the last year or so, they were up against the CBT, the competitive balance tax. This was a way to reset the tax rate by getting rid of both Price and Mookie. Yeah, it's a business decision. They had a lot of money coming down the road, but I think in a perfect world, sure, they wanted to keep Mookie Betts, but I think they realized probably a year and a half ago the long-term marriage just wasn't going to happen.
You know, Tom, it's unfortunate that I can't go to Fenway because I was going to bring a sign that said, we reset the tax rate and show that up. So that's what I'm really rooting for. We reset the tax rate, everybody. Look, I think this is I'm happy for Mookie Betts. It is a nightmare for Red Sox fans to have, like, the best homegrown player since Carl Yastrzemski leave. I'm not necessarily frustrated. I'm more angry. Is there any optimism that you can give me, like, hey, the Red Sox did the right move? Like, just give me some optimism besides the tax rate of what the Red Sox have coming to sort of dry my tears here.
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, if you're an accountant or you like projecting forward 5 years from now, you'll say it was the right move logically. But no, as a fan, I mean, again, the Mookie's the kind of player. I think he's one of the top 5 players in baseball. He represents any franchise really well. So, you know, it's a tough blow for the Red Sox fans, especially now that he's in L.A. for essentially the next 13 years. That team, folks, is loaded. I'm not talking about just this year. First of all, that offense this year, I think, could be the most devastating offensive team since the '99 Indians. Remember, there's the DH now in the National League. So you got Mookie, you got the DH, this incredibly deep roster. So the Red Sox fans are going to have to watch Mookie in the postseason a lot in the future, not just this year.
That's right. I'm happy for
All right,
that.
Tom, so if Mookie bets his deal, sorry, I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for there, Wilds, but just deal with it. The Red Sox lost Mookie Betts. That's how it's going to be for the foreseeable future. So if Betts' deal's sort of setting the standard, I got to ask you about my Yankees and Aaron Judge. He's next in line to get paid here. What does that mean now for what happens coming down the line for Aaron Judge?
Yeah, he's 3 years away, so there's not a lot of urgency. I would say the next big name coming up is Francisco Lindor. He's a year away. He's basically in the position Mookie was in last year, where a trade probably looks inevitable. To see if there's a trade and sign or wait till free agency. But Judge is an interesting case because he's a little bit older as a college player in the major leagues now. You know the injury history. I set all those things aside. This guy is so valuable to the Yankees franchise, they must make sure he never wears another uniform. I mean, first of all, he's made for Yankee Stadium. His numbers in Yankee Stadium are just crazy, the way it's pop flies out to right field. But more than that, I mean, people go to the ballpark to see Aaron Judge. Maybe not this year, of course, but I think he's the kind of Yankee that fits in with all the rest of them, the Derek Jeters of the world, who play their entire career in pinstripes. He's the most popular player probably in baseball when you look at jerseys that are sold. TV ratings, once I checked this with the Yankees, the ratings actually go up when Judge is at bat, and they go down after the at-bat is over. He's just somebody people want to see, and I think the Yankees have to make sure that, again, he wears nothing but the pinstripes for the rest of his career. That might not happen for another year or two, but I don't think this guy's going to get to free agency.
Yeah.
All right, Tom, obviously the regular season in baseball, the abbreviated regular season starts today. Postseason will start in a couple months, but all of a sudden, I don't know what that postseason is going to look like. I read last night reports in not literally the 11th hour, but almost literally the 11th hour, they might actually do the playoff expansion. Like, explain to me what is happening behind the scenes and how realistic is it that we're going to have a 16-team postseason in baseball this year?
I think there's a good chance it's going to happen, Nick. This is something that was on the table back in March. It was one of the provisions that went away as the negotiations fell apart last month. But I think it's something that makes sense for the players. Think about it. There's 156 more players that would get into the postseason this year if the playoffs are expanded from 10 teams to 16 teams. But on top of that, you're talking about an additional $300 million in television money just this year alone. And, Nick, I know when you get your refund check from the IRS, you don't put it in your passbook savings account. You go out and spend it. That's what happens when owners get more TV money. They spend it. So this will help inform the free agent market this year and years ahead. So I think this is going to happen. Now, they have to get it done before the first game, which is tonight, as you mentioned, in Washington. But I think in the last couple of days, well, I know there's been momentum to get this deal done. Now, I'm not sure what's going to be the back and forth. People just don't give up negotiating chips. But I think it's something that clearly makes sense for both sides, and that's why I think it's going to happen.
Tom, what do you think happens to the Blue Jays? The Pennsylvania said you can't play where the Pirates play. I heard Camden Yards. I heard Buffalo. And is this more of a logistical challenge or also like a competitive challenge if they're on the road the entire year?
I got a backyard they can use if they get stuck. Listen, I think it's a problem that is both short-term and long-term. I don't think they're going to play 60 games on the road, a 66-day road trip. I don't think that's going to happen. What they may have to do is find some place in the short term so they can upgrade their ballpark in Buffalo. That's where their AAA team is. And that ballpark right now does not have major league standard lighting or clubhouse facilities. So if you know a good contractor, let the Blue Jays know they can work on upgrading that facility. And in the meantime, I think they're going to play a bunch of games on the road. You know, they've talked with the Rays. They've talked with the Orioles. Obviously, the Pirates shared system didn't work out there because of concerns about coronavirus, the spreading in Allegheny County. But this is a real issue. I just don't see them playing a 66-day road trip. I think probably fixing the ballpark in Buffalo might be an answer, but that would take about 2 or 3 weeks. So at least there's some hope that this thing will get resolved so that they're not on the road for every game.
Hey, Tom, I haven't had nighttime plans since quarantine started, but tonight we get some baseball back. I'm super excited. My Yankees are playing the Nationals. I've been reading about Garrett Cole. He's been excited. He didn't know when baseball was going to start. He's been practicing as if it was always going to be tomorrow. He's got some excited jitters. Talk to me a little bit about what your expectations are for the Yankees. It's a shortened season, which doesn't always bode well. They don't have the luxury of getting off to a slow start, but where do you see the Yankees falling this year?
Well, as you know, this was the best offensive team in baseball last year. They had some injuries. If they can keep Aaron Judge and Gary Sanchez and Giancarlo Stanton, the three of those players, healthy through 60 games, my goodness, they will be fun to watch. And now you add in Cole. I mean, the Astros were 50-15 when Cole started a game for them. It's almost win day when he gets the baseball. But more than that, this guy is super competitive. Typically, a guy free agent gets to New York, there's a tremendous amount of pressure to produce. I'm talking about right off the bat. There's a level of accountability for big-time free agents who come to New York that's not there anywhere else. That's not going to bother this guy, maybe partly because there's nobody in the stands. But I think because he wanted to be a Yankee, don't lose sight of the fact he rooted for the Yankees growing up. They drafted him. He didn't sign. He stayed in college. This is where he wants to be, in this spot for the New York Yankees. So you're in for a real treat if you're a Yankee fan every fifth day watching this guy pitch. I think he's going to set some strikeout records for the Yankees. We know they have power, but now they've got power on the mound as well.
I want to ask you about the Nationals, but just quickly, free idea for Commissioner Rob Manfred. August 13th on Fox is the Field of Dreams games. This is the Field of Dreams game. Hey, Toronto, let Toronto play at the Field of Dreams for a few weeks while they get that stadium in Buffalo set up. Hey, the people of Iowa would love it. It's a win-win for everyone. I'm not sure logistically if that can work at all. I just think it's a good idea. All right, Nationals. They can't get off to a slow start like they did last year, Tom, obviously. But they are, if there is such a thing as a hot team, you would think it's the Nationals. I don't know if anyone can be a hot team in these circumstances. The defending champs. It's been a while since we've had a repeat champion. What are their chances, in your opinion?
It's been 19 years, the longest time in the World Series era without a repeat champion. A lot of that is due to the expanded playoffs in recent years. It's a grind, man, especially on your pitchers to pitch that 7th month under high pressure, duress every pitch. But here's the key for the Nationals. They have kind of a recovery period built in here because of the shutdown, right? So all the wear and tear on Strasburg and Scherzer and Corbin, that's not an issue this year. I will say the one danger here is the schedule. I think the teams in the East have the toughest schedule in baseball, and the Nationals have a bear of a schedule. But if they get in, they have rested starting pitchers. They can do exactly what they did last year. Last year, they were 10-0 when Scherzer and Strasburg started a game, and Corbin wasn't too bad coming out of the bullpen as well. So that formula plays any year, but especially now that these guys are rested again. Getting in, to me, is the key. But if they get in, oh, yeah, they can repeat.
Tom Verducci, baseball is back. Enjoy the games tonight. Then on Saturday, the triple header on Fox. It feels good to say that. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning.
Thanks, Tom.
We are going to take a break. Coming up, are the Clippers talk some basketball? Are they poised for a title run after what we saw last night? That is next. This is First Things First. Thanks, Tom. On to the Clips cruise now. Clippers took down the Magic 99-90 last night in the first scrimmage in the Orlando bubble. Kawhi Leonard put up 9 points in 19 minutes, managing the workload early, I'm sure. But more importantly, Paul George, looking impressive, dropping 18 points in 19 minutes. Nick, it was just a scrimmage, but good to have basketball back. What'd you take away from the Clippers win last night?
Oh, listen, it was great to have basketball back. I talked with Broussard right after this game completed, and Broussard always says, that I like to criticize Kawhi Leonard. Let me give Kawhi Leonard, it'd be the first person to say this. Kawhi has a chance to be the absolute best Robin in the NBA. I don't know if him or Anthony Davis, but I mean, given how Paul George playing,
there it is.
I mean, Kawhi as a complimentary role was outstanding. But in seriousness, what could you take away from it on the Clippers front when no Patrick Beverley, no Landry Shamet, no Ivica Zubac, no Montrezl Harrell. So they still don't have their rotation flushed out. Hopefully by the time the postseason actually begins, much less the regular season begins, they will have their rotation flushed out because Wilds, I'm not saying they have to have both Harrell and Zubac when the season starts July 30th against the Lakers. But you can't be dusting off and waving the smoke away from Joakim Noah in big NBA games.
Oh, yes, you can.
It's not 2014
yes,
anymore.
You can.
No. And so Joakim Noah
yes, you can.
being a...
yeah.
Oh, you can? Okay, inform me,
the
please.
pride of Hell's Kitchen? Two-time NCAA champion in 2014, Defensive Player of the Year and perennial thorn in the side of the Cleveland Tourism Bureau. Joakim Noah is back, and not only back, he's back in the starting lineup. Broussard, I loved it. I think we have a few highlights we can show of him. He ended up with 4 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists in only 50. Give that to me. Give that to me. We also, Nick, just for your benefit, we did the per 36, 9.6 points, 12 rebounds. Look at the assist, 7.2 and a plus-minus of 21, almost 22. Broussard is a champion. And we got one great quote. We know the guy's a quote machine. No prima donna on the Clippers, that's for sure. You know who he's talking about. Broussard, in all seriousness, I love Joakim Noah. We had him on the show, and I've just fallen in love with him. But get this. There are so many guys in the league who genuflect in front of the king and post their Twitter videos of like, look, here I was when I was 4 years old and LeBron was cradling me at his camp. But Joakim Noah is not into that at all, and I think there's a real attitude that he brings, no joke, that will help the Clippers take over the Lakers.
Well, he fits in with what the Clippers mentality is already. I mean, obviously Kawhi Leonard spurned LeBron. Patrick Beverley wants nothing more than to keep the king from winning his 4th championship and to bring the championship to the Clippers. So Noah fits right into that. And I'm all with you on this, Wiles. Joakim Noah, I'm not going to overreact to an exhibition game, but he looked good. For a guy who hadn't played in eons, he goes out there, he set good screens, he did all the little things, he rebounded the basketball, he finished. I know Nick doesn't like him because he once called LeBron and the Cavaliers Hollywood is HE double hockey stick. But still, Joakim Noah is a pro, and he will fit in nicely with the Clippers.
I love it.
I've heard of contact highs. I've never heard of people getting high just by talking about somebody, and that appears to be what's happening with Wilds and Broussard in related to Joakim Noah commentary. Did you say a thorn in LeBron's side? How about this? Here's a number for you. 16-5. That's LeBron's career record in the playoffs against Joakim Noah. His best record against any individual player in league history, aside from Al Horford, who he's, I think, 19-4 against, just utterly dominated Horford in his career. Joakim Noah has never had a good series against LeBron. In 2011, his season was ended by LeBron. In 2013, his season was ended by LeBron. In 2015, his season was ended by LeBron. And let me tell you this. Nothing, as someone who picked the Lakers to win the title and bet on the Lakers to win the title, nothing will thrill me more than if the Clippers are fortunate enough to make it to the conference finals and play the Lakers, that Joakim Noah can be prominently involved. Joakim Noah hasn't been good since 2014. He hadn't played in the playoffs since 2015. Like, I don't understand what you guys are talking about. Go ahead.
We're not saying Noah's going to lead him to the promised land. We're just saying he looked pretty decent for a 35-year-old guy who hadn't played in a year. That's it. Here's, in all seriousness, though, here's something. We know the Lakers and the Clippers have their 2 stars. Look, we've known this. It just was highlighted again yesterday. The Clippers' 2 stars, Kawhi and George, can each go get theirs whenever they want off the dribble. Whereas with the Lakers, Anthony Davis, as great as he is, he's not the guy that's going to just necessarily go get his whenever he needs it off the dribble. He has to be set up a little more than George or Kawhi. That's something to watch for.
Well, can I just bring up the bigger picture here? The fact, Nick, you brought it up. Clippers are still flushing out their lineup. They've been flushing out the lineup seemingly since day one. We keep saying, well, as soon as they get all their pieces, they're going to be a good team. Here we are at the restart. They still don't have their pieces, and now we're saying, well, maybe by the playoffs of the restart in the bubble, they may have everything flushed out. That's got to be a bit of a disadvantage, Broussard, to the Clippers at this point, that they still don't truly have the lineup. Go ahead, Nick.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that one of the question marks with the Clippers is what's their eight-man rotation? Like, you guys are all of a sudden singing the praises of Joakim Noah. Does he jump over Ivica Zubac? Like, we don't know what the rotation is, and so while the scrimmages don't really mean much as long as no one gets hurt, you would like to use it to flush out some of your potential lineups, unlock some lineups. And one of the downsides to your alleged superstar playing when he wants to is you haven't had as many opportunities to flush out lineups during pre-restart as other teams have had. But listen, Wilds, Broussard can say Anthony Davis can't go get his, and it's a fair critique in general. But you know when he can go get his? When he's salivating because he sees Joakim Noah's on the court. And he says, oh, okay, give me the ball, please. Because, again, it is not, the last time Noah was an impact player, LeBron played for the Heat. Like, that was three teams ago. What are we talking about? Okay. And it speaks to also, to me, the Clippers just adding folks. It's like, oh, you guys said the people that aren't scared of LeBron. Marcus Morris, another guy, not scared of LeBron. But he is used to LeBron driving right past him to the hoop. So a lot of guys who might not be afraid of LeBron, but have a lot of experience of LeBron crushing them in the playoffs, I guess you can add a roster full of those guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, are the Lakers not randomly adding guys, Dion Waiters? And we were like, hey, Jamal should go over there. And JR is back. And I was trying to get Lance and his guitar back on the Lakers. So it's not like the Clippers are the only team that are adding random pieces. And none of those random pieces are as good as 2014 Defensive Player of the Year, Joakim Noah, Nick.
They added Dion, but they haven't played him. They didn't play him when they added him before the season shut down. He was a buyout guy. And JR was because they had a guy in Avery Bradley say, I can't go to the restart. So that's not the same as you add all of a sudden Marcus Morris. He, in their last game against the Lakers, is taking 9 shots. Or Reggie, the point guard, Reggie Jackson, who takes Landry Shamit's spot in the rotation. Joakim Noah's getting big minutes. It's difference between adding guys on the edges and just inserting guys into your rotation. But I'm all for it. In fact, the more I think about it, I had Montrezl Harrell 6th man of the year. I think Joakim Noah should take his minutes. I think Joakim Noah should take his minutes. I'm excited for it.
I see fear. I see fear. The American Open. I see fear from you.
The good news is basketball is back. Let's talk some football. Saints Pro Bowl cornerback Janoris Jenkins goes up against Tom Brady week 1. He'll stop by next to talk about that and more. But first, Cam Newton landed in Boston yesterday, and he's already adapting to the Patriot way. Take a listen.
Love it.
No disrespect to nobody, but I'm extremely ecstatic. But I'm not talking. That's pretty much, you know.
When can we expect you to say a few more words for us?
Who knows?
Excited to be here in Boston?
Back here, first things first, talking about Tom Brady's latest Instagram post. Check out TB12 putting up some Bucks practice pictures. I have to say, he looks good in orange, Wilds. He had a caption on this that read, okay, all right, bright, colorful, effervescent, if you will. The caption reads, a quarterback must believe in himself. His work must convince his teammates that he can be trusted when all else fails. Nick, do you think Brady's new Bucks receivers trust him inherently?
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is where adding Tom Brady to your team has an immediate inherent value, is that it's not just that we all in the media acknowledge that he's had the greatest career of any quarterback ever. It's that it is unanimously accepted across the league that he's the greatest to ever play his position. And in an odd way, I would argue that his physical limitations enhance his legend. And by that I mean he gets to it if a player was incredibly fast or an amazing athlete, as they get older, you obviously expect that to deteriorate. Because Brady has never been a combine star or a spark test star, it's always been about preparation and his brain. Those only get better as you get older. So I think guys see him and they have more faith in him than you would a typical 40-something-year-old quarterback. And I think they can immediately learn from him. Listen, I obviously am not bullish on what he's going to be as a player this year, Broussard, but he's going to be so much better for all the players around him because he prepares as well as any player we've ever seen. He has the attention to detail as good as any player we've ever seen, and he commands the respect of the room as well as any player we've ever seen. So in that regard, yeah, I think everyone in the league is drinking the Kool-Aid, certainly the players on his own team, Broussard.
Look, he has all the intangibles, and people get mad when I prop up intangibles. But if you look at the greatest quarterbacks, Joe Montana, it wasn't just physical skills. It was the intangibles. It was what was in between the ears. It was his ability to captivate his teammates and galvanize them and believe in them. That quote from Brady, that's what that says. That shows you what he's about. A lot of quarterbacks wouldn't know to say that, but he said it because that is one of his major strengths. And the fact that, Nick, you brought up an interesting point. It makes some sense about the physical tools. They still think he can do it at 43. Obviously, at some point, no matter how smart you are and all that, you're going to deteriorate because of your age. But the fact that at 43 years old, he's still got all these young guys in Tampa Bay believing in him. They don't think they're getting an old, washed-up has-been. They think they are getting one of the best quarterbacks, not in history, but still in the league, and that is a credit to Brady's intangibles, and that's huge for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Because, look, they were pretty good last year with Jameis Winston throwing all those interceptions. How good will they be this year with a smart quarterback who, while he may not be able to carry them, he certainly won't hurt them?
You know what I think is interesting when you talk about intangibles, Broussard? Do you remember the clip when Brady went up to Lamar and he's like, great job, love everything you're doing, and Lamar's like, you're the GOAT, you're the GOAT. I think that was it was a great moment between quarterbacks. I wonder if it's a little bit weird if I'm a young wide receiver and I'm catching the ball from the greatest quarterback of all time and the ball dives a little bit or the ball's not exactly where it's supposed to be. Maybe it's Brady's getting a little old. Maybe it's because we didn't have any preseason. I wonder if I feel like my voice can be heard in the locker room to criticize Brady or be like, hey, that was a little slow or that was a little bit late. Do you think that him being the GOAT could actually have a negative or a detrimental effect on his relationship with his receivers?
Well, I definitely don't think you're going to hear receivers complaining about it. And I don't think you should, and I don't think that's a negative, though. You don't want if they go to him privately and say, hey, I like it here, you can throw it a little high for me, I'm fine with that. If they go to him privately and talk about it, but to hear guys complaining to the press or complaining in the locker room, that would be detrimental to the team. So I don't think that'll happen out of respect for him.
I also don't just quickly.
Go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, Jenna. I also don't think guys are typically critical of physical mistakes. If you throw it to the wrong place, if it's supposed to be a 9-yard dig and you throw it like it's supposed to be a 7-yard dig, that's a mental mistake. Brady's not going to make those. He's not going to throw it to the wrong place, make the wrong read. If he just can't make the throw, that's what, I don't think guys typically are critical of that. It's when you process the wrong information, which I think was a huge problem with Jameis Winston. And so I understand your point, Wilds, which is guys are going to, there might be a lot of, with the receivers, guys going, my bad, even if it was Brady, through a duck. But I do think that he's going to be putting them in the right spots, Jenna.
All right, let's move on and talk about Tom Brady's replacement up in New England, most likely. Cam Newton arriving in Boston yesterday. Let's not talk about where the mask is on the face, but the new Patriots quarterback asked some questions and simply answered a la the Patriot way, saying, quote, I'm not talking. He's already adapting all things New England. Nick, what'd you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Cam is one of the many athletes of his generation that is correctly figured out. And I know it bothers a lot of old school media people. He doesn't need the local media at all. You know how Cam talks to us? On his Instagram page. And he does it all the time. And he asks himself, with respect, better questions, sometimes in the third person, than often local reporters or national reporters would. So I got no problem with this whatsoever. I feel like Cam has been Wilds as transparent as any athlete I can remember throughout this process. And the fact that he didn't want to talk while he was at the airport, fresh off the plane, maybe wanted to do a little social distancing, like I got no beef with that whatsoever, whether it's a Patriot way or just the Cam way.
Of course not. No, he's just focused on winning. He realized that there's no value to setting the expectations so high like another team in the NFL who's consistently taking every opportunity to talk about how they're going to have a dynasty for the next 5 years, 10 years. The Chiefs are supposed to win, according to the latest report, up to 7 rings in the next 10 years. I don't know how long the dynasty, maybe it's multiple decades like the Patriots, Nick. So I like this out of Cam, and I don't need to hear any dynasty talk out of Kansas City while we're at it.
Look, I don't know that this had anything to do with the Patriot way. I think Cam is going to have plenty to say in New England when the time is right. As Nick said, he's been talking plenty on Instagram. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle. He's hungry, all that stuff. He'll say similar things, I think, when he gets to New England. But the bottom line is he got to get it done on the field.
Also, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but Jenna Wolfe, who's been holding out hope against hope that Stidham could win that job, Jenna Wolfe just called Cam Newton Tom Brady's replacement in the tease. She said, moving on from Tom Brady to his replacement.
I said,
Jenna, a little Freudian slip. Little Freudian slip.
I said likely.
That Cam Newton's going to be the starter there. I'm just telling you, Jenna, I noticed it. America noticed it. I'm just telling you.
We're going to move on, talk some basketball. LeBron back on the court tonight in all his glory, just like our guy Nick Wright. Stick around, that's next. First things first. All right, guys, time for stories to start your morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve, starting with a heat check. It's been really hot lately up here in the Northeast. That's not important now. The Miami Heat taking down the Kings last night, 104-98. Duncan Robinson, impressive, finishing 5 of 8 from 3. And Jimmy Butler chipping in 9 points in 11 minutes. Nick, how big of a factor will the Heat be in the East?
They could be a massive factor. You've got, in potential, we'll see how the seedings fall, but let's say Miami's the 4, Philly's the 5. We know Milwaukee's going to be the 1. In the first round, you would have Jimmy Butler, one of Wild's many good friends in the NBA, Jimmy Butler against his old team, Philly. In the second round, Bam is, I believe, the single most equipped player in the entire league to guard Giannis. And I think people have forgotten, because of the restart, Broussard, Andre Iguodala's on this team. Not only will be a huge factor, but as far as veteran championship leadership, like Miami, it wouldn't shock me if they lose in the first round, but it wouldn't shock me if they're in the conference finals, because they present really interesting matchups for everyone they could play, Broussard.
They are dangerous. Now, I don't know if I'm willing to say they could actually reach the finals, but they certainly could spoil it for a few of the other teams people think are contenders. Look, they are 7-1 against Philadelphia, Toronto, and Milwaukee. 3-1 against Philly, 2-0 against the other two teams I mentioned. Now, Boston's beaten them twice, but outside of that, obviously they play well against the top teams in the East. Jimmy Butler has had a great year as a leader. He's versatile, does everything. Doesn't shoot the 3, but he does everything else. We know he's clutch. You mentioned Bam, Nick. That's a great point about him. And then they're shooting. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league, even though Bam and Butler don't shoot the three. So Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, you got a good coach in their exposure with championship pedigree. They are going to be a problem. Goran Dragic, yes, they're going to be a problem.
You know what I'm buying? The Jimmy X Factor, Broussard. Did you see the Chris Haynes report that Jimmy got called on the whistleblower line, and when security went up to the hotel, they opened the door, and Jimmy was in full workout gear, dribbling a basketball, drenched in sweat, while everybody else is out fishing and going on, Cinderella's castle.
Jimmy called that
Jimmy
on
Butler's
himself.
out there working.
Right.
Jimmy called that on himself.
Jimmy Butler's up there working
that
out.
Story would be out there. He called it on himself so we would talk about it.
It's a good idea.
I love it.
It's a good idea. On to the new look Nuggets now. They unveiled their big lineup, which was anchored by 7'2" Bol, who dropped 16 points, 10 boards, 6 blocks in the win over the Wizards. Bol played so well he had a, quote, random drug test after the game. Broussard, what'd you make of the Nuggets' big lineup?
Look, it was nice to see. I wish it would be something like this on a regular basis, but obviously they only had 8 healthy players. They were missing 3 of their starting perimeter players in Gary Harris, Jamal Murray, and Will Barton. Those are their guards. So they kind of had to go big, but it was fun to watch. Jokic, the first 7-foot point guard we've ever seen. I loved it. They averaged 6'10" across the starting lineup. But we won't see a steady diet of this, unfortunately.
Wild. Seeing Nikola Jokic, a point guard, it reminded me of a foot taller Khalid El-Amin out there. You don't often see a guy with that body type playing the point. And so, listen,
great pull by
I think what could be fun, and it could be a first-round matchup, is the Rockets' tiny person lineup against the Nuggets' giant person lineup. Daryl Morey tweeted about that a bit yesterday. I think the Rockets would run them up and down off the court. But listen, the Nuggets are going to have to do, call it creative things because of the top teams in the West. They're the one without a true superstar. But I did like what I saw from Bol, and once they get Jamal Murray back, and the other guys, they'll be a dangerous-ish team.
I'll put an idea out there. This might be the death of small ball. This team is really tall, but put Ben Simmons on this team. Ben Simmons is tall, but plays small. Eventually, once all these tall guys like Bol, like Jokic, start being able to hit threes, why do I got a guy who's 6'2" out here when I can get a guy who's 6'10" out here? Mike Malone called it the tallest team in NBA history. So I like this, and I think the small ball days are numbered. It's a theory. It's a half-baked idea.
The Mavericks team that started a starting lineup that averaged 7 feet was Sean Bradley. But close, Mike Malone. Take integrity demands.
What's the median height? Sean Bradley throws the whole thing off.
On to the Rockets' plan now. Russell Westbrook returning to practice with Russ saying, quote, when I'm back to 100%, you will know. All right, Nick, what would a title mean for Russ's legacy after he puts that mask back
that
up
sounds
all the
like
way?
you're
There
asking
you go.
me about a list, Jenna. So here's the deal. You're talking about the top 50 players in NBA history. There is a glut
long list
of guards in the 31 to 39 range. So these following players are all in the top 40, but outside of the top 30. Allen Iverson, Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Walt Clyde Frazier, and Jason Kidd. They're top 40 players, not top 30 players. I would argue, Broussard, if the Rockets win the title this year, and Russ, in order for them to do that, Russ would have to be great. He leaps all of those guys.
Okay.
He leaps Iverson, he leaps Kidd, he leaps Nash, he leaps CP3, he leaps all of them. He has an MVP. He would, again, this is if they win the title. I think he vaults himself as, becomes the 31st greatest player in NBA history with the title.
That's not a ridiculous take. I'll give you that because, look, what I think it would do is the disrespect.
Congratulations.
No, that's love. That's love, Nick. The disrespect for Westbrook would stop. And I don't know if I've been listening to too much Colin Cowherd, but this guy is iconic, and yet people want to poo-poo his accomplishment. When he averages the triple-double for 3 seasons, oh, it's easy to get him now. There's no bigs in the league. They shoot the three, they're long rebounds. LeBron could have done it if he wanted to. Nobody else has done what this guy has done. You're right, Nick. If you throw a championship on his legacy to go with the triple-double seasons, it's hard to deny him. People don't like him as much as they should, but I think you would not
Iverson?
be able to deny him.
Above
I think
Iverson?
he'd be above Iverson. Yes.
Jeez,
Yes.
guys.
He may already be.
He might be above Iverson now. If we're being honest, he might be above Iverson now.
And people blame, this would also stop, Nick. People blame him for Durant not having a ring and leaving OKC. That would stop too.
Correct.
All right, moving on to the Lake Show. LeBron and company taking on Luka and the Mavs tonight. Both teams making their bubble debut. Broussard, start with you. What are you looking for tonight from the Lakers?
Well, look, we know what LeBron's going to bring. He's looking like Kimbo Slice, by the way. But I'm looking forward to seeing this potluck of shooting guards they've got. KCP, Alex Caruso, Quinn Cook, Deion Waiters, J.R. Smith. You talk about dusting off Joakim Noah, Nick. How about J.R. Smith, your guy? I know he's been golfing and staying in shape. But come on, is he really going to give me something? That's what I want to see tonight.
Golfing and staying in shape.
J.R. Smith was the third best player, on a team that made the finals in 2018. Joakim Noah hadn't been in the playoffs since 2015. Enough with these comparisons. If we want to get a Joakim Noah counterpart for the Lakers, see if Big Z is available. LeBron's old buddy's Adrunas Ilgauskas. That'll at least be a fair fight. Dust him off from what he's been doing. Listen, I think you're going to see the Lakers experimenting with some lineups wilds. I also think because the Lakers have essentially locked up the 1 seed, that their scrimmages are going to continue into the restart. They're the 1 seed no matter what. So I don't think you're going to see a full-fledged Laker outings until the playoffs begin, Kevin.
Yeah, so do you think this could happen, Broussard? That this whole thing is it's not half speed. Let's say it's 80% speed. But a guy like Deion comes in, is like, well, this is my chance. I got to shine right now. Lights up the scrimmage, lights up these first 8 games, and plays himself into a spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, they need help. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And Deion's got the edge that the Lakers want, too. He's got some edge about him. It's possible he could take a little bit away, though, from LeBron. Remember, they didn't fit in Cleveland, and Deion ended up getting moved out of there. So
Deion wants the ball.
That could be good or bad for them.
Listen, you guys, everyone's focused. If you remember when the Lakers were doing the the buyout before the season stopped, I wanted JR instead of Deion. I think if one of those two guys is going to be a contributor, I think it's more likely JR, who has had massive moments in the playoffs, than Deion, who we kind of know what he is in this league, Jenna. But Lakers play my Slovenian son tonight, Jenna.
Like JR averaged 17 points in
Lakers dusting off JR tonight. We got some basketball, we got some baseball. Lots to talk about tomorrow. We got to go. Stay safe, everybody.